If you use an email account that's set up by your employer, or you know somebody that does, then this video is going to prove somewhat interesting for you. Because the issue of privacy and the right to privacy and the reasonable expectation to privacy and confidentiality has come up a number of times in recent months and years in various different cases. And in this case, it came up in respect of emails used for private purposes when the email address and the email account is owned and controlled by your employer. But first of all, if you're new to me, I'm a barrister who helps you understand law. So please hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss out on future videos. And also check out the website below, BlackBeltBarrister.com, and join the mailing list for exclusives coming up in the very near future. So this is a very recent case of the Court of Appeal, where the claimant husband and wife ran a holiday let business from a farm before they were declared bankrupt in 2015. This was then sold onto a third-party company, which was one of the defendants in this claim. However, the claimants continued working in this business as employees of this new company. One of the claimants set up an email account in the business name for use by this new company, but these were in the original two claimants' names, because they continued to work for this company. The email addresses were intended to be used for new inquiries, but the first claimant also used the email address for personal emails. A couple of years later, the company that bought this business then sold it on to another company, which was an investment vehicle for yet another company. So there were 3 defendants in total. Another year later, however, in 2018, both of the claimants were dismissed from their positions. The defendants discovered what they alleged to be wrongdoing by one of the claimants in the emails contained in this email account, which was ultimately designated for inquiries. The claimants were originally granted an interim injunction which restrained the defendants from disclosing any of these emails. However, the defendants denied that there was a reasonable expectation of privacy or a duty of confidentiality, and that none of the emails that it said provided evidence of the claimant's wrongdoing were confidential or private. This in law is known as the iniquity defense. Ultimately, however, the claimant did not achieve a final injunction, and that is why this case ended up at the Court of Appeal, because the claimants were appealing against the dismissal of their claim for a final injunction. And the decision of the Court of Appeal was to dismiss their appeal. So just to unpack that slightly, to explain what the decision was and why it's important, there were 2 defendants originally. They had a business. They sold it to one defendant, who in turn sold it to another defendant, which was an investment vehicle of yet another defendant. So there were 3 defendants. One of the claimants set up email addresses for the purposes of inquiries, but also used them for personal emails. The claimant sought an injunction to restrain the defendants from disclosing their emails. Although they were granted an interim injunction, they failed to achieve a final injunction. And ultimately, their claim for the final injunction and for damages for misuse of private information and breach of confidence were dismissed. And having appealed the decision to the Court of Appeal, their appeal was dismissed. So the ultimate point of law and precedent is this: that the judge was entitled to find that an employee who has used a company email account for personal emails has no reasonable expectation of privacy or confidentiality. Because the email account was designed to receive inquiries from customers, and although they were in possession of the password for the account, the password belonged to the company, and it was designed to protect the company's secrets and not those of the employee. So ultimately what this means for you is that if you use a work email account and work email address, which is safeguarded with a password, then the company owns this email account and they own the password. And in turn, following this decision, that password is designed to protect the company's secrets and not the employees. And of course, whilst every case will turn on its own facts, in this particular case, in respect of the reasonable expectation of privacy, the court held that the claimants had failed to discharge the burden of demonstrating that they had any reasonable expectation of privacy in relation to any of these documents which were held in this email inquiries account. Further, that there was no merit in their argument that the burden of proof was reversed in respect of some of these emails, which were categorized in a list of issues before the court, which were on the face of it private, so that they attached a reasonable expectation of privacy, unless the contrary was proved. In other words, the burden was upon the claimants, and there was no presumption of privacy which the defendants were required to rebut in this case. More importantly, however, the fact that the court had identified some emails that were private did not necessarily give rise to a real expectation of privacy, or that because they agreed to destroy some of these emails amounted to any such recognition of this expectation of privacy. Ultimately, the account was a business account. It was designed to receive inquiries from customers and thus was the property of the company. So ultimately, my warning here is that if you use a company email address for your own personal emails, don't assume following this case that you have any real expectation of privacy, and thus you should ultimately confine your personal emails to your personal account. I hope you found this video useful. Please do give this video a like and subscribe to this channel if you do like these summaries. It really does help my channel grow. And check out my website in the description below for exclusive content coming up very shortly. In the meantime, thank you for watching.